I just want to thank everyone who has supported my Shadow of the Colossus boss ranking video, and thank those who gave their feedback for the video. It's comments like these that make me want to do more and more boss rankings. Today, I thought of a game that's a little different in tone, just a tad.
I told myself this was about justice, about protecting the weak, but I was wrong.
Welcome to Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This highly acclaimed game was a steep turn in the Metal Gear franchise. Rather than being a stealth game, Metal Gear Rising is a full-balls hack and slash. It's not like the previous Metal Gear entries had killer bosses of their own, namely Metal Gear Solid 3. Today I'll be looking to rank the Metal Gear Rising bosses from worst to best. Keep in mind that this list is solely my opinion and experience, so enough monologuing and let's cut to the ranking. Number 10, Grad. You know how I was going on about the Metal Gear franchise boasting some of the best bosses in gaming? Well, Grad is not one of them. In fact, I wasn't even going to consider Grad a boss. The wiki considers it one, so here's Grad in all its glory, and no, I'm not going to count the Chopper as a boss as well. While Grad has a visually neat design and a decent moveset, what's the problem? The first problem I have with it is how a large portion of the fight is just Grad trying to keep its distance from you, which is so goddamn tedious when it fires missiles up your butt and traps you in a goddamn stunlock loop. Problem number 2 is that I'd be fine with this if they didn't shove a big mobile tank that takes up an eighth of the tiny room you're locked in, meaning it'll be more difficult to dodge its attacks. That's where problem number 3 comes in. What I assume was meant to be cover to dodge Grad's strikes, its missiles and guns fire right through it. So Grad can hit you through the cover, but you can't hit it. It seems as if the developers try to flip the script and put obstacles to give the boss reprieve from you. It just makes the fight even more tedious. I feel bad for the bosses that I do this to. Not to mention, this won't be the last time you see Grad. You'll often see Grad in later levels pop up in twos, or surrounded by a ton of enemies, acting as an enemy themselves, taking away any originality the fight had. Even with this final reason, Grad takes a dive into the pit of mediocre bosses. Number 9, Metal Gear Excelsis. To be honest, this is an average boss for me. Not a bad boss, but not necessarily a great boss either. I'd say this is an average point for bosses in gaming as a whole for me. What I'm trying to say is Metal Gear Excelsis has some pretty strong points, but the weaker points of the fight is what holds it back from a high spot. It's got a decent move pool, like slamming its swords down one at a time, while slamming both down, which needs to be dodged instead of blocked. Sliding them along the platform, which needs to be jumped over, and after getting it down to enough HP, it will try to stomp you with its foot. But there's nothing a good old dodge or block can do. Once you damage the leg enough, you can run up and hack it off and leave the boss stunned for a few free hits. That's only phase 1 and where the fight brings the fight so low down on the list. That's only phase 1, however, and where the fight really bogs down. A few Kalyujis will hop up and hassle you while Metal Gear Excelsis fires lasers from its 2 cannons, which has the wonkiest hitboxes I've ever played in a game. However, if you can somehow avoid the lasers or hit the Kalyujis and stun them, allowing you to slice them open, have a chance of getting healed again. But this portion takes way too long to remain interesting. Then you repeat phase 1 again. Once the second leg gets cut off, you get to witness one of the most ridiculous finishes I've ever seen. Ryan just rips off one of the Metal Gear's legs and sword clashes with it. While the finisher may be awesome, the rest of the fight is just mildly average. Number 8, Blade Wolf. Oh, I bet a large amount of you are screaming at me in the comments right now about putting everyone's favorite K9 unit in the bottom half of the list. While Blade Wolf may have a fight for a spot in the top 5 characters, we're ranking bosses today, even though you could argue that Blade Wolf should be higher anyways. That's not to say I don't like Blade Wolf. In fact, I love this fight. It's one of the highlights of Mission 1, and I go back there often to experience it again and again. Blade Wolf runs around doing combos, knife throws, and rolling around like an orange Sonic the Hedgehog. My first fight with him was painful though. I didn't bother blocking or parrying, so I ended up dying a lot as a result. It's definitely not because of his dialogue saying, "Evade my blows." Meaning I was meant to dodge them. Nope, just block all of his attacks and you're golden. The fight feels so fluid, and it's great to battle Blade Wolf and learn for his desire of freedom. However, I have to knock Wolf down a few spots because, like Grad, models of him show up as a basic enemy for the rest of your journey, making the original fight feel less special. That's practically the only thing I can knock Blade Wolf's fight on, so I don't think Blade Wolf's fight is bad. Just think of it as how stiff the competition is, since every other boss from here is just getting better and better. Number 7, Sundowner. This homicidal warmonger is known by many to be one of the worst fights in the game, yet I had a different experience. Let's go through how the boss works. Throughout the fight, Sundowner has shields that require blade mode to break them apart. Normally in blade mode it often comes down to slice and dice to achieve results. Sundowner requires you to use free blade mode to line up the weak points to separate the shields and then slice them off. I like this little mix up in the battle formula because you have to be precise in your slices. If you don't manage to line up the slice, the whole thing will blow up in your face. Literally. If you break all the shields, the real battle begins. By real battle, I mean this dude is an absolute pushover. He gets beaten around like a ragdoll. He eventually pulls out helicopters to some enemies to keep you distracted, but not enough to take away from the epicness of the battle, and realizing how much of a coward Sundowner really is. I love this fight. The music, the overall atmosphere, the fight that does technically live up to his name, all just a marvelous experience. Before I finish up though, I need to point out some downers with Sundowner's fight. If you can't slice his shields off, you can skip the second phase altogether. What I mean is that if you don't remove all of Sundowner's shields by when he gets to 50% HP, he'll likely go down in 10 seconds before you can even hear the vocals kick in. Finally, the sequence when Sundowner blasts you off the building and you have to pilot a bird all the way up is pretty janky to say the least. I wish developers made Sundowner truly invincible until you break all his shields and then fight him at 100% HP like I did. Still, I can't deny how fun it is taking out Sundowner, and I like the shield mechanic, so he just gets the number 7 nod. Number 6, Thompson. To be honest, I didn't like Thompson's boss fight as much at first. He might be the most simple boss on this list in terms of moveset and presentation, not only that, but you get to play as Blade Wolf to take down this war hero. Well, let's go through what Thompson has to offer in his boss fight. He has a nice mixture of moves that require blocking and moves that require dodging. Each attack has a generous tail, and they leave you a few seconds to hit Thompson for some decent damage. One thing I can praise about this fight is how they utilize stealth in this fight. I saw Blade Wolf's playstyle more on the stealth side rather than combat, and I love how the developers managed to blend it into the fight so well. In fact, that's why I put Thompson here. It's very similar mechanics where it matches Blade Wolf's style perfectly. And that goddamn finisher, my god, look at him! To sum it up, the fight is fun, unique, and gets my heart pumping in all the right ways. Just because a boss is very simple doesn't mean that it can't be satisfying. But with this in mind, we still got 5 bosses to go, and we're only going up from here. Number 5, Metal Gear Ray. Damn, does this game know how to kick off the game with a skyscraper-sized death machine as the tutorial boss. Well, you can't find Metal Gear Ray in Sam's DLC, I'll only be sticking to the one you fight as Raiden in Mission 0. Ray is a solid boss. It does have some basic moves like stomping, firing missiles, firing a plasma cannon, swiping with its tail, and a charge if you get into the right position. All these require dodging or blocking, but I was a fool and just ran around it on my first playthrough. That was long ago, and now I feel I've truly mastered Ray, which it lands this high on the list. Not only is it a brilliant starting boss, but a training dummy to see how well you've mastered the game's core combat. Plus, it was a good idea to make sure that you always fought Ray without your cyborg upgrades. Meaning that your fight with Ray won't depend on your damage or your resources, but with your skill over the game's combat instead. Yes, I did say fights because once you thought you took Ray down, it comes back for seconds. This time on a smaller platform, depending on how much health you have from the beginning fight, you'll be stuck with the health to survive the second encounter. Ray has a few different moves and all moves with different tells to throw you off. Also, the finisher is absolutely wild. You run from the top of a tower to run back down and slice Metal Gear Ray in half. No joke! So with all this said, Metal Gear Ray earns a spot just inside the top 5. Number 4, Mistral. Mistral is another boss to add on to excellent early game experiences alongside Gaius from Shadow of the Colossus and Tower Knight from Demon Souls. This 3-phase fight is an absolute roller coaster ride. Mistral starts the fight with a polearm made of arms. Freaky, right? Your job is to stay focused on the boss, but you must destroy the tiny minions around her. If you do a successful parry on Mistral, she'll leave herself vulnerable for blade mode so you can chop her polearm up, and her other arms as well. What she'll do is then grab her minions and add their arms to her arms. I like how balanced this portion is. By parrying Mistral, you get a chance to reduce her offense as you do. Mistral will reduce her support to gain back that offense. She has a few moves to keep you on the rails, and if you decide to get too greedy, one of the minions can latch onto you, and you gotta shake them off, which leaves you vulnerable. This requires you to be on your toes not just with Mistral, but with the clingy enemies as well. The second phase has a more 2D setup to it, making it dodge the enemies harder, but nothing you can't slice through. This limits both yours and the boss's mobility, so dodging won't work some of the time. The final phase is where things really heat up. You fight a final phase in a burning factory, which can be used to your advantage with proper positioning. You'll notice a few exploding barrels in the arena, which you can lure Mistral into. First, line yourself up so you're in the middle of the barrel and Mistral. She should be able to do a charge attack, which spins vertically into a barrel. It does a ton of damage. Also, you know how I was going on about the previous boss's finishers being brutal? Wait till you see Mistral's! You freeze her in liquid nitrogen and then proceed to slice her to bits. Dude! Well, at least she found a cause to die for. It was a tight squeeze, but Mistral in a 3-phase fight lands us at number 3, Monsoon. Depending on how good you are at Metal Gear Rising's combat will heavily impact your fun factor with Monsoon. Of course, many of you infamously know him for his monologue. It's as if Monsoon just stood up and spoke about what every villain feels about the hero. Monsoon just leaps from the top of the building, starts shaming Raiden for his motives and actions, essentially calling him a hypocrite, and states his sword is a pretty mean. That's not all he's known for. Unlike the pushover Sundowner, I've heard many tales of how Monsoon is the hardest boss in the game and made players tear their hair out in frustration because they couldn't parry. Well, I had that moment with Blade Wolf before, so Even then, I still took a few hits every now and again because I thought he'd eventually end his combos. That's the whole fight, just parry every attack Monsoon throws at you. It's a ruthless non-stop assault and I love every second of it. The fight feels so fluid once you get the hang of it, and the music only pumps the adrenaline faster and faster. Eventually, Monsoon enters his can't touch this phase, where you cannot be damaged until he is stunned, and you can whack at his head with blade mode. If you don't hit him within 3 tries, you have to find another opportunity to do it again, unless you use MP grenades, which is conveniently dropped when you slice the helicopters he throws at you mid-fight. Press the quick throw button and you can quickly hit his head before he gets time to move it, and you're good to go. When he summons the donut of tanks, you can parry that too. Nothing in this fight is meant to be dodged. You could do that, but it makes the fight a little frustrating. Once you destroy the tanks, my god, the transition is godlike. Monsoon feels like he's got more aggressive, faster, and has more pack to his punches. It's such an adrenaline rush that makes me feel like no other boss in the game ever could live up to that potential. Except for our final 2. Number 2, Jetstream Sam. Is one of the 2 only bosses to actually have build up to them. In a way, you can say Sam is similar to Monsoon in terms of fighting style. It's a one-on-one duel with pairing as many attacks as possible with a few side unblockables. The fight requires quick thinking and quicker reactions. It's a pretty awesome sword duel, until you disarm him. You think to yourself, no way is he still gonna fight me. But that only to get obliterated by this madman. Sam is not to be underestimated by any sort. He has the reflexes of a god. You could block his attacks, however, you won't be able to hit him fast enough since he'll just jump away. What you can do is just dodge or jump over him, leaving a window to get hit. It's a nice curveball to make you extend your options for beating him. After enough playing around, Sam will pick up his katana for one last push. He gets not only your moves, but his own moves too. Even Ishin's one mind, or some they call it Virgil's judgment cut. What puts him above Monsoon is that there's actually build up to him. In the beginning of the game, Sam destroys a military squad just to show off. Later, you get to battle him after Ray. How does the fight go? Sam chops your arm off, cuts your left eye, and humiliates you. This fight against Sam now shows how much you've conquered the game and its obstacles. It feels like the closest to a Metal Gear Rising PvP duel, but it doesn't stop there as our final entry takes it to a whole new level. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, the #1 best boss in Metal Gear Rising, Senator Stephen Armstrong. Was it gonna be anybody else? It's as if the developers went to a boardroom and came up with a solution to one of the most ridiculous but most excellent final bosses in gaming, and cooked up the perfect solution. This madman politician goes on to say he's going to use war as a business to get elected, then end war as a business. His spouting on such political topics while kicking me around like a football is goddamn hilarious, but it's not just for show. Armstrong is a full-on powerhouse. The beginning starts with you barely doing any damage to him and introduces some basic moves you'll see throughout the later fights. Later he breaks your katana and you gotta take him on with your bare fist only for a scripted loss. That's when Blade Wolf comes in and we get to use Sam's katana. This fight makes no sense and it's epic as hell. Armstrong uses everything you've learnt in the game. Sundowner's fight where you had to align your blade mode to cut weak points. Monsoon's fight where you had to cut a certain spot to do damage to him. Mistral's fight with minding your positioning, being wary of the environment around you, while packing all the fun from Jetstream Sam's fight, while blocking and dodging all of Armstrong's attacks. Even with all this madness and chaos happening, there is a story behind it all. As you clash with Armstrong and his ideals, you come to realize he's trying to do the same thing you've been doing. Instead of clashing on different perspectives, you clash on both your methods to carving the path to that ideology. Armstrong just isn't the best fight in the game. He's arguably one of the best boss fights ever made. However, all this is just my opinion. Feel free to leave yours in the comments below. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know what other boss rankings you'd like to see me do. Metal Gear Rising was a great experience and I happily recommend it to those who haven't and played it for themselves. Makes me wonder what other game I got in store for Wednesdays, hint hint, nudge nudge. Now of course, I wish you all a great day and I hope to see you all soon. Goodbye!
Looking down on the cars on the highway, the stream of taillights, everybody advancing together to so willingly sacrifice rights. When